On the evening of March 12, 2024, a crew from Horizon International Airways gathered in the operations room at New York's John F. Kennedy International Airport. They were gearing up for one of the world's longest commercial flights, HIA Flight 742, a 17-hour, 9,900-mile journey to Sydney Kingsford Smith Airport, Australia. The flight was scheduled to depart at 19:30 Eastern Time, and with Sydney 15 hours ahead, they touched down around 07:30 the next morning, local time. The crew consisted of 4 pilots, 2 for the main legs and 2 relief pilots for the ultra-long-haul rotation, plus 12 cabin crew members. The captain, 58-year-old Richard "Rick" Harper, was a veteran with 16,200 hours, including 12,000 on the Boeing 787-9 Dreamliner, the aircraft for this flight. Rick was known for his calm demeanor and encyclopedic knowledge of the 787 systems. His first officer, 34-year-old Sarah Nguyen, had 3,800 hours, 2,500 on the 787, and a reputation for sharp instincts. The relief pilots, Mark Ellison and Priya Sharma, were equally skilled, ensuring the crew could rest during the marathon flight. At 1,700 hours, the crew huddled over their briefing packs, delivered by a dispatcher named Elena Torres. The packs contained weather forecasts, NOTAMs, flight plans, and fuel calculations. The en route weather looked manageable. Some turbulence over the Central Pacific due to a low-pressure system, but nothing to cause alarm. The arrival weather in Sydney, however, raised concerns. The forecast predicted scattered thunderstorms around 7 a.m., with heavy rain, gusty winds, and visibility dipping to 4,000 meters. Still above the landing minima for runway 34L, but worth watching. The pilots reviewed their alternate airports: Melbourne Tullamarine, 600 miles away, Brisbane International, 450 miles, and Canberra Airport, 150 miles. All 3 had similar forecasts, possible storms, but acceptable conditions. In aviation, alternates must have better weather than the destination to ensure a safe landing if things go south. Thunderstorms, though, are fickle, and Rick noted, these forecasts can change in a heartbeat. Sarah nodded, jotting down the alternate details. Fuel planning for a 9,900-mile flight is a high-stakes balancing act. The Boeing 787-9, with its sleek composite airframe and twin Rolls-Royce Trent 1000 engines, is a fuel-efficient marvel. But a journey this long demands precision. The flight plan called for 126,500 kilos of fuel, broken down as taxi fuel, 1,200 kilos for ground operations at JFK and Sydney, trip fuel, 108,000 kilos to fly the Great Circle route, including climb, cruise, descent, and landing. Contingency fuel, 5% of trip fuel, 5,400 kilos, for unexpected deviations like route changes or holding. Alternate fuel, 7,900 kilos to divert to Melbourne, perform a missed approach in Sydney, climb, cruise, and land. Final reserve fuel, 4,000 kilos, enough for 30 minutes of loiter at 1,500 feet over the alternate. This was the legal minimum, but it included robust margins. Rick and Sarah knew trans-Pacific flights often benefited from jet streams, saving fuel. Historical data suggested they'd gain 10 to 15 minutes and 1,500 to 2,000 kilos from shortcuts over Canadian airspace. Confident in the plan, they accepted the fuel load without adding extra. "Looks solid," Rick said, signing the paperwork. Sarah agreed, and they headed to brief the cabin crew. The cabin crew, led by Chief Purser Emma Clarkson, was preparing for 315 passengers, 30 in business class, 45 in premium economy, and 240 in economy. The 787-9 was configured for comfort, with lie-flat seats in business and advanced in-flight entertainment. Emma's team reviewed safety procedures and passenger needs, including 12 special assistance travelers and 3 unaccompanied minors. The aircraft, registered as ENNA 789 HIA, was a 3-year-old 787-9 with no maintenance issues. Rick conducted the walk-around, inspecting the landing gear, wings, and massive engines, each capable of 74,000 pounds of thrust. Sarah set up the cockpit, programming the FMS with the route, JFK to Sydney via waypoints over Canada, the Bering Sea, and the South Pacific. The relief pilots double-checked the systems, and Emma's team boarded passengers. By 1928, the aircraft pushed back from Gate 23, towed by a tug through JFK's bustling taxiways. At 1945, Flight 742 roared down runway 31L, climbing into a crimson sunset. The cabin crew dimmed the lights, and passengers settled in for the long haul, unaware of the challenges awaiting them. The climb to 39,000 feet was smooth, with the 787's advanced avionics handling turbulence effortlessly. Over Canadian airspace, ATC granted shortcuts, shaving 12 minutes and 1,200 kilos off the plane. The crew rotated rest periods. Sarah took a break at hour 4, replaced by Mark, while Rick monitored the systems. Priya swapped in later, ensuring fresh eyes in the cockpit. At hour 10, crossing the international dateline, the crew checked their progress. They were 20 minutes ahead of schedule, with 15,000 kilos of fuel remaining, well above projections. The weather radar showed clear skies, but the Pacific low-pressure system loomed closer to Sydney. Rick radioed the company's operations center in Sydney for an update. "Storms are intensifying," the dispatcher reported. "Expect holding on arrival." Let's dive into how pilots manage fuel on long-haul flights, especially when weather throws a wrench in the works. Commercial flights must carry enough fuel to reach the destination, trip fuel, handle unforeseen events, contingency fuel, 3 to 5% of trip fuel, divert to an alternate fuel for a missed approach, climb, cruise, and landing. Loiter for 30 minutes at 1,500 feet, final reserve fuel, here 4,000 kilos. The final reserve is untouchable except in emergencies. Pilots monitor fuel burn via the FMS, which calculates remaining fuel at each waypoint. If delays or diversions eat into alternate fuel, pilots must decide, commit to the destination or divert. A minimum fuel call alerts ATC that further delays could hit the final reserve, while a Mayday fuel call declares an emergency, granting priority. Holding patterns are racetrack loops around waypoints used to manage traffic. The 787 burns about 120 kilos per minute in a hold, and the FMS calculates holding time based on fuel. Pilots cross-check this with ATC's estimated approach, time to make decisions. In good weather, they might use alternate fuel to stay. In unpredictable conditions, diversion is safer. At 6:30, 1,000 miles from Sydney, Flight 742 was cleared to descend. They were 25 minutes early, with 12,000 kilos of fuel, comfortably above the 4,000 kilo final reserve. Sarah, as pilot flying, set up the FMS for the ILS 34L approach, briefing Rick on the procedure. The weather ATIS reported 5,000-meter visibility, northwest winds at 15 knots, and scattered thunderstorms. But at 6:45, the weather radar lit up. A massive storm system, larger than forecasted, blanketed Sydney. Red returns signaled heavy rain and turbulence, stretching across the approach path and toward Melbourne and Brisbane. "This is ugly," Rick said, adjusting the radar tilt. Sarah recalculated their holding fuel, 45 minutes before dipping into alternate fuel. Sydney approach called, Horizon 742, except holding at Bolte due to tailwinds on 34L. Possible runway change to 16R. Rick acknowledged programming the hold. The FMS confirmed they could stay until 7:30 before hitting 7,900 kilos, alternate fuel. They nominated Canberra as their new alternate, 150 miles away, with clearer weather. At 7 a.m., Sydney approach confirmed the runway change to 16R due to a 15-knot tailwind on 34L. Sarah handed controls to Rick, who reprogrammed the FMS and briefed the new approach. But the storm was intensifying. Visibility dropped to 1,200 meters, and winds gusted to 25 knots, varying 150 degrees in direction. 2 aircraft ahead went around, citing wind shear. By 7:10, Sydney Tower suspended arrivals, with visibility at 800 meters and severe wind shear. Flight 742 was burning alternate fuel, with 7,000 kilos left. Rick radioed, "Sydney approach, Horizon 742. We can hold one more pattern, but we're nearing minimum fuel." The controller replied, "Horizon 742, no change. Weather below minima, standby. The crew completed another hold, but the storm grew, covering Canberra. The FMS showed 6,200 kilos, above final reserve but tight. Rick weighed their options. Stay in the hold. Risk more fuel burn with no landing guarantee. Divert to Canberra. Safer, but the storm was closing in. Try Brisbane. Too far, burning too much fuel. He requested vectors for one more approach, hoping for a break in the weather. At 7:20, Sydney approach cleared them for the ILS 16 right, but wind shear forced a go-around at 1,000 feet, costing 1,200 kilos. Fuel was now 5,000 kilos. Cheerful music. Before we plunge back into the chaos, let's talk about staying secure online. Researching this story meant dodging geo-blocked news sites and archives. Our sponsor, SecureNet VPN, made it possible, letting us access servers worldwide at blazing speeds. SecureNet also shields against hackers and phishing with cutting-edge cybersecurity. Whether you're digging into aviation mysteries or streaming shows abroad, SecureNet got your back. Check out securenettvpn.com/pilot for 4 free months with a 2-year plan and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Thanks, SecureNet. At 7:30, with 4,800 kilos, the crew declared minimum fuel, warning ATC that further delays would hit the final reserve. Sydney approach instructed another hold at GOSPA, estimating 10 minutes. The FMS showed they could hold until 7:45 before reaching 4,000 kilos. Rick contacted Canberra Tower, confirming a VOR 35 approach in decent weather, but the storm was advancing. At 7:40 with 4,200 kilos, Rick declared, Sydney approach, horizon 742, Mayday, 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 fuel. This prioritized them, but Sydney's weather remained unflyable. They diverted to Canberra, 150 miles away. ATC provided vectors, but the storm reached Canberra, dropping visibility to 600 meters and gusting winds to 20 knots. Rick took over as pilot flying, a controversial choice. As pilot monitoring, he could have coordinated with ATC, the cabin crew, and the company, leaving Sarah to fly. Instead, Sarah managed radios and FMS updates, pulling up Canberra's VOR 35 charts. The 787 cruised at 250 knots, burning 130 kilos per minute. By 8:15 over Canberra, fuel was 3,200 kilos, below final reserve. Canberra approach cleared the VOR 35 approach, but a 12-knot tailwind forced a go-around at 1,500 feet, costing 1,000 kilos. Fuel was now 2,200 kilos, triggering the low fuel quantity warning. The QRH checklist mandated flaps 20, no rapid braking, and preparation for a dual-engine flameout, a chilling prospect. Rick requested vectors for runway 17, with 800-meter visibility and a 5-knot headwind. He flew a tight circuit, intercepting the ILS at 3 miles, descending at 1,200 feet per minute. Sarah called, "Runway in sight!" But the autopilot failed to stabilize, flashing, "No autoland." Rick disengaged it, manually aligning the aircraft. At 200 feet, a sink rate warning sounded, but he held the approach, landing on runway 17 at 0825 with an estimated 1,100 kilos. But the drama wasn't over. As the aircraft slowed, a hydraulic warning light flickered, likely low pressure from the high-stress landing. Rick taxied to a remote stand, but Canberra's ground crew reported the gate wasn't equipped for a 787. With fuel critically low, they couldn't taxi far. Rick shut down the right engine to conserve fuel, leaving 900 kilos. ATC suggested repositioning to a larger gate, but Rick refused, citing fuel. The storm eased, and Canberra Tower offered a short taxi to a suitable gate. Sarah calculated 200 kilos for the taxi, leaving 700 kilos, below emergency thresholds. Rick radioed, "Canberra ground, horizon 742, we're staying put. Fuel's too low." Emergency vehicles surrounded the aircraft as passengers disembarked via mobile stairs. The final report pinned the incident on unforecasted storm intensity and delayed diversion. Horizon International Airways revamped its training, emphasizing early diversions, fuel planning, and crew resource management. The report highlighted climate change's role in fiercer storms, urging better weather modeling. Rick and Sarah were commended for their skill, but criticized for not diverting sooner. The hydraulic issue was traced to a minor leak, repaired before the aircraft's next flight. The incident became a case study in pilot training, stressing the mantra, "When in doubt, divert." What's your take? Would you have diverted earlier? Drop your thoughts below and subscribe for more aviation tales. Stay safe and see you next time.